Chalice Lighting for Challenging Times by Lisa Dodge. Why a flaming chalice? The answer comes, or the question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer. A cup of blessings overflowing, a cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst, a cup of wine for celebration and dedication, the flame of truth, the fire of purification, oil for anointing, healing. Out of chaos, fear, and horror, thus was the symbol crafted a generation ago. So may it be for us in these days of uncertainty, sorrow, and rage, and a light to warm our souls and guide us home.
Come again, please, come again. Whoever you are, religious worshiper, wanderer, heretic, pagan, even if you promised 100 times and 100 times you broke your promises, our door isn't a door of hopelessness or frustration. Our door is open for everyone. So come as you are. Come and let us be here together now. Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Church of Des Moines and our digital service. I'm Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw. My usual pronouns are they, them, and theirs. And today we're going to be talking about forgiveness. I'm speaking to you from land that is the traditional territory of the indigenous Pohote, also called the Iowa. Barb Martin is today's celebrant and song leader, and Bruce Martin is our pianist. Susan Jellinger is the pastoral care associate for this week. So if you need Susan this week, please contact her. I ask that you keep your microphones muted during the entire service, but after the service, you're welcome to turn your microphones and your cameras on and join us in the coffee hour breakout room. So please stay around.
And welcome from me, Barb Martin. I'm helping with the service today. My pronouns are female. And it's so great to know that all of you people from the Des Moines area can join in, as well as anywhere in the United States. So whoever you are and wherever you are, I hope that you find something here today that will help you on life's journey. And let's sing together. Our first song, you need no number for, you need no words in the chat room, because there are so few and we will sing it so often. So the words are sing and rejoice, all things now living now, sing and rejoice. And I'll get it by the third time through. Okay, so maestro. Sing and rejoice, all things are living now, sing and rejoice, let all things living now sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, let all things living now sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, let all things living now sing and rejoice. Hey, you did real well.
Thank you, Barb and Bruce. This morning's Time for All Ages story is called Harriet, You'll Drive Me Wild by Mem Fox. It's illustrated by Marla Frazee, and it's going to be read by our own Dominic Ortiz Berardi. So give me a second. I'm on a new computer this morning. If I mess this up, bear with me.
Hey, bud. Watch him. Watch Dominic. Harriet, You Drive Me Wild, written by Mem Fox, illustrated by Marla Frazee. Harriet Harris was a pesky child. She didn't mean to be, she just was. One morning at breakfast, she knocked over a glass of juice, just like that. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child." "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. At snack time, she dribbled jam all over her jeans, just like that. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child." "Harriet, you drive me wild." "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. Before lunch, when Harriet was painting a picture, she dripped paint onto the carpet, just like that. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child." "Harriet, you drive me wild." "Harriet, sweetheart, what are we to do?" "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. At lunchtime, she slid off her chair on the table, and the tablecloth came with her just like that. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child." "Harriet, you drive me wild." "Harriet, sweetheart, what are we to do?" "Harriet Harris, I'm talking to you." I'm sorry, said Harriet, and she was. Later that afternoon, when Harriet was meant to be napping, she ripped open a pillow, just like that, and 1,000 feathers flew in every direction. There was a terrible silence. Then Harriet's mother began to yell. She yelled and yelled and yelled. I'm sorry, said Harriet. "I'm really sorry." Her mother took a deep breath. I know you are," she said, hugging Harriet tight. "I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have yelled, and I wish I hadn't, but sometimes it just happens, just like that." "Big mess," said Harriet. "A very big mess." Her mother and she started to laugh. They laughed and laughed and went on laughing as they picked up the feathers together. The end.
Good job.
A new minister was quite concerned about the finances of her church, and determined to increase giving, she wrote a long and fiery sermon dedicated to financial generosity. A little girl became restless as the sermon dragged on and on and on. Finally, unable to stand it a minute longer, she leaned over to her mother and she stage whispered loudly, "Mommy, if we give her the money now, you think she'll let us go?" You know, that works in a real person situation, but over Zoom, it's hard to keep up that kind of pressure. So the morning offering will now be given and received in order that we can provide for our programs and support our social justice partners. We're going to post a link in the chat. One half of this electronic plate goes to the social justice programs of the church, and one half to our Faith in Action partner for this month, One Iowa. Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you to each and every one of you for these gifts that you give. And thank you, Dom, for that great read. You did an amazing job. I want to remind everyone today that the Amos information and listening sessions, the first one is tonight at 5 p.m. And Cheryl and Amos have asked that I share this one more time for those of you who didn't catch it last week.
Hey, Superman, what are you doing?
I'm trying to make some changes to our government. With my superpowers, you'd think I could do this, but nothing's working.
Well, we superfolk can leap tall buildings in a single bound, but only a big group of everyday people can push for real changes. Amos brings together a load of people so that they have the superpowers to do things like in March, when they pushed Iowa unemployment to hire 100 more workers to get people unemployment checks that were stalled.
Wow, where can I hear about what Amos does, and how can I say what I think needs to work better?
I'm so glad you asked, because there are 3 Amos House meetings planned on Zoom. One Sunday, August 23rd at 5 p.m., another on Monday, August 24th at noon, and a third on Wednesday, August 26th at 6 p.m. The Zoom dates and times are just now being shown in the chat box, and you can also find them in the intercom.
But I need to register, right?
Yes, that's right, so that we can know how many are coming and make sure that we have meaningful groups when we do the breakout rooms.
Let's go sign up for one of the Zoom calls now. I want to hear about Amos, and I've got a lot of things to say.
Yes, let's get our Amos superpowers in gear.
Our special music today is a piece called Come to the Music by Joseph M. Martin, sung by the UCDSM choir with Karen Kramer leading, played by Bruce Martin, and the visuals are from Cirque du Soleil.
Celebrate, celebrate, come to the music. Celebrate, celebrate, come to the dance. Celebrate, celebrate, sing hallelujah. Celebrate, celebrate, clap your hands. Celebrate, celebrate, hallelujah. Celebrate, celebrate, hallelujah. Celebrate, celebrate, hallelujah. Celebrate, celebrate, clap your hands. Hallelujah, 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 sing the music, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna. Come hear the jubilant song of creation. Come hear the music which brings us a hope to the nation. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Celebrate, 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 clap your hands. Gloria, Gloria, sing hallelujah. Gloria, Gloria, sing to the Lord. Gloria, Gloria, sing hallelujah. Gloria, Gloria, sing evermore. Gloria, Gloria, Deo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Gloria, Gloria, Deo. Come to the music. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Karen and the choir, for that lovely recording. You know, our church isn't the building that we're in. The building may be closed, but the church is very much open. The church is the community. And we come together in community here to be with each other in the good times and the bad and in all the in-between times, and to help one another as we struggle with the rough places and to celebrate with one another as we experience joy. I'd like to share now in the chat the names of anyone we know who needs us this week, who needs to be held in love, who needs special care and attention. And as we type their names into the chat, may the love of our community hold them all. We ask every week that the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May we travel hand in hand with all those who fight for equity and justice in human relations. May the work of our hands and our hearts support and comfort everyone who's marginalized, oppressed, silenced, and at risk. May we be called to thoughtful action by the needs of those who struggle against violence and pain and degradation and destruction. Over and over, may we be the ones to help. May we bring light to the world. May all those who are grieving be comforted. May all those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed. May those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. Every week, I light 3 candles. The first of them is for all the joys and sorrows we've shared here together. Second is for the names that we've written. And the last one is for all of the joys and all of the sorrows which are deeply held, but which have remained unspoken here today.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. The first reading is from the New York Times best-selling author and mystic Carolyn Mace. In her book, Why People Don't Heal and How They Can, she writes, "In our own lives, when the time comes for us to move beyond an old way of thinking and to give up perceptions that no longer serve our growth, we frequently experience the signal to take up our bed and walk as an act of betrayal, a Judas kiss. And when you experience an apparent act of betrayal, look closely to see if it may not actually be a divine invitation to let go of the old and discover the new. We will all have Judas experiences, but seen through the lens of higher consciousness, they turn out to be powerful turning points in our lives that can introduce us to an entirely new form of power, the power of the individual self. From that point of view, the words of Jesus, 'Forgive them, for they know not what they do,' are especially meaningful. Ponder the possibility that you may have already agreed in your own Garden of Gethsemane to move forward, but you needed a push to get going. The people who may seem at the tribal level to be participating in an act of betrayal are, in truth, acting out an agreement that you have already made with God. How then can you be angry at one of the Lord's messengers? There is nothing for which you need to forgive them, for they have done nothing at all to harm you."
The first time I heard that first reading, it made me cringe. And I had to read it through several times before I could stop grimacing. It's one perspective that you hear about religion, that somehow someone hurting you is part of a plan. So I want you to hold that thought, that is a cringe-inducing idea, because nobody deserves to be hurt as someone's plan. And I want to give you these words. And this is from a piece called Every Breath by Leif Seligman. We pause in the stillness to rest for a minute, to quiet ourselves, so that we can feel what stirs within us. Every breath draws us closer to the pulse of life, and with each exhalation, we make room for something new. May we find in this gathering the comfort of those who care. May we encounter patience along our growing edges and compassion in our tender spots. Here, may we find the inspiration and encouragement we need to face our challenges and nurture ourselves. In the presence of suffering across the globe, may we redouble our efforts to practice kindness where we are, with the hope that the light of our actions travels like the light of stars. May our gestures of compassion and generosity seed possibility. May we walk humbly with one another, choosing reconciliation over resentment as we try to live right-sized. When life presses in and shifts us off balance, when pain assails us, when frustration mounts, may the rhythm of our breath steady us and bring us back to a place of gratitude. That is so very different than trying to be grateful that you've been hurt as part of a plan. And I want you to hold that thought in your mind, and please join us in 3 minutes of silent meditation, thought, or prayer.
The second reading is a meditation on forgiveness by the Reverend J.E. Abernathy Jr. All our lives, we have been told to seek that which is good, to turn our faces from the dark and toward the light, toward beauty, toward truth. But the truth is that the world is not always good. The light we seek casts shadows, and there is brokenness amid the beauty. Our world is far from perfect, and so are you. We strive to be in right relations with one another, but there are times when we are left angry or disappointed, even as we sometimes anger or disappoint others. Whether it is the harsh words said by a loved one, the loss of a friendship, the carelessness of a stranger, or the scars left by a childhood trauma, bad things do happen. We cannot seek truth, beauty, and light without acknowledging and affirming that which is false, broken, and in shadow. For all of these exist within us as well. In this moment of silence, let us remember the wrongs we have endured, the imperfections that we have perpetuated, that we may forgive them and ourselves and forgive yet again. And in the times of music and readings to follow, let us write our resentments, give form to our grievances, and bring them forward to burn. For like our anger, the flames may burn and destroy, but like our love, the flames may also cleanse and purify. Let us undertake the work of forgiving ourselves and each other, that we may begin again in love. Amen. And now let's sing together a hymn tune I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but the words will be in the chat with our Unitarian version. Okay. It's 370 if you're using your hymn book. All people that on earth do dwell.
I'd like to suggest that during the sermon, if you think of something that you've been holding on to, that you're angry about, that you haven't let go of, that you haven't forgiven, you don't want to forgive, take a minute and jot it down. Just jot yourself some little notes about it. When we get done today, relook at that page. Really think about it. Decide if these are things you want to keep holding on to, or if they're things you're willing to let go of. And if you're willing to let go of them, destroy the sheet. Just destroy the sheet. Burn it, flush it, drown it. I don't care if you bury it, shred it. It's just a physical reminder of the things you're willing to let go of. Like I said, when I first saw that first reading, it made me cringe, made me sick. This idea that somehow being harmed was part of a plan. And that theme does run through some religious orders. It's not one I've ever found very valuable. But I know most of us may have had a similar experience growing up as our parents tried to teach us about forgiveness. And I want to see if any of this sounds at all familiar to you. Mom, he took my stuff. Did you take her stuff? You did. Now tell her you're sorry and give her stuff back. There, he said he was sorry. Give him a hug, let him know you forgive him. I'm waiting. There, you forgave him. Don't you feel better now? Well, you know what? No, I really don't. Being forced to forgive someone doesn't feel better. I'm not sure anybody would ever feel better after saying something they don't mean or even understand. When we first learn about forgiveness as children, it begins as a ritual. Someone does something that hurts someone else, they feel guilty, or they just get caught, and they say magical words to make it all better. I'm sorry. And we learn that to complete the ritual, to make it go away, we say, I forgive you. This is how the ritual works, right? This is what grown-ups do. Problem's over then, and mom or dad or grandma or teacher can go somewhere else and you can go back to playing. You have learned your lesson. You've learned all about forgiveness. And the problem is we never take it much further. And religion reinforces this brainless ritual. Most religions make it even more simple. In Christianity, the book of Matthew says in Matthew 5, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn him the other also. And if someone wants to sue you, take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. Buddhism also teaches repeatedly of the need to forgive without being asked, saying, he abused me, he struck me, he overcame me, he robbed me. In those who harbor such thoughts, hatred will never cease. He abused me, he struck me, he overcame me, he robbed me. In those who do not harbor such thoughts, hatred will cease. The Buddhist reading gets to the root of the problem, the hatred, fear, and anger that arises when someone hurts you. This is a very different idea than just completing a mindless ritual. Letting go of hatred, fear, and anger can be a good thing. But the problem is when we really don't let go, when instead, because mom or teacher or religion or adherence to some deity tells us we have to forgive, we have to say the magic words, I forgive you. A lot of time, instead of actually forgiving, actually letting go of the angry emotions attached to the situation, we swallow them. We hide them. We let them fester and dig because we're ashamed. We shouldn't feel that way. That's what they've told us. We should be the bigger person. We should let bygones be bygones. But how do we really let go? And when do we really let go and why? Being hurt isn't some divine plan to teach you something. If we really value the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we have to include ourselves in that. It's easy to get angry because there are children in cages being treated as objects. It's easy to accept dismay without embarrassment when immigrants are treated as second-class citizens. We agree they have worth and dignity, that to insult them is to insult us all, but we're not always good at defending our own value. I want to give you 3 lines, and I want you to think about them. 1, I have inherent worth and dignity. I have inherent worth and dignity. 2, I have value. I have value. And 3 is the one most people can't say as easily. I am allowed to be angry when I am harmed. I'm allowed to be angry when I am harmed. That's not what we get told as kids. You are allowed to be angry when you are harmed. Now, that doesn't sound much like forgiveness, but I'm going somewhere with that. That anger at another person or the situation or even yourself, that's that first step toward healing. Redemption and absolution and, yeah, forgiveness. None of those can happen if you don't claim your own worth. You know, something of value was damaged, and it was you. I want you to think about that for a minute. When you have been unable to forgive someone for something, how much of it's been because they just wouldn't admit what they did? They don't feel sorry. Or they don't seem sincere enough in their efforts to make it right, maybe. Maybe they just disappeared, never spoken to them again. Somehow we've been taught that it matters that they, the person who hurt you, validate your experience of being hurt. That somehow they get to tell you you were wounded, and the extent of their apology defines our wound. I want to tell you that's a lie. Forgiveness is not some kind of shared construct. We are not in this together. If I've been hurt, it's nice to have the other person recognize it, but their recognition is not needed. Sometimes it isn't even possible because of age or death or distance or their mental health, or even their refusal to recognize the original offense. No, I didn't steal your toy train. It was my toy train. Substance abuse is great at causing this problem. But when you own your right to be angry when you are hurt, you also own your right to put away the weight of that anger when it's not valuable or good for you anymore. The other person's permission is not required. Once we reclaim our right to actually feel our own hurt, to accept our own anger when we're hurt, well, what do we do with that? The easy answer is you experience it. You experience those feelings. You explore them. You make them an invaluable part of your own journey toward truth and meaning. You learn from it. You don't say, well, I must have deserved that. It's there to teach me something. No, you didn't deserve it. You were hurt. It's okay to be mad that you were hurt. Take the time you need to think about what happened and why it happened. And yeah, it's okay to learn from it. Take the time you need. Learn everything you can, and then let it go. Let it go because it's not benefiting you anymore. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It never washes it away. You can't unsmash a plate or put the toothpaste back in the tube. You know this. Forgiveness doesn't wash it away. It doesn't mean that whoever hurt you didn't mean it. So what's the real meaning of forgiveness? If you try to forget all the things you learned as a kid, the Greek word for the idea of forgiveness was aphesis. In modern English, that most closely translates to release. You're taking off the chains. For just a second, don't make it any more complicated than that. Forgiveness is release. Forgive means to choose to take someone who you have been holding in your debt, holding in fear or hatred or resentment or bitterness. Cut the rope that ties the two of you. Let go of the chains. Get them unattached from your life. Forgiveness is not saying someone's bad actions are all okay now. It's not turning a blind eye toward their injustice. It means that you choose. You choose not them. You take away from them the power to be chained to you. You remove the unwanted ties binding you because you're done with the situation. You have examined it, you have learned from it, and you have put it down because you took everything you needed from it, from what you were unfortunately given. And now you're done. You forgive it. We still use the word this way when we say forgive our debts. We mean to just wash them away. My student loan debt was forgiven. It was just wiped out. We don't mean it never existed. We don't mean anything about our relationship to that debt. We just mean that now it's gone. If I forgive the person who punched me in the jaw, I don't mean they didn't punch me. I don't mean it wasn't hateful and mean. I mean, I'm done with it. And I don't have to hang on to it because of them. I'm putting it down. On May 11th in 2002, a 22-year-old man named Eric Smallridge, and you can look this guy up, you can Google him. He was driving drunk in Pensacola, Florida, and it was something he'd done a couple of times before. He hit another car. There were two 20-year-olds in that car, Megan Napier and Lisa Dixon. Both were warm and funny college kids. They had great families. Both were killed instantly in that wreck. Eric got convicted of DUI manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 22 years. Once there, he actually wrote to the families of the girls, apologizing, promising to try to make the remainder of his life mean something. Megan's mom, Renee Napier, found that her grief was crushing, and she made it her life's mission to make sure that as many parents as possible didn't have to go through this same kind of pain. So in memory of her daughter and Lisa, she founded the Megan Napier Foundation for DUI awareness. And for years, she organized all kinds of amazing events around Florida, talking about the dangers of DUI, driving under the influence. Thousands of people kept hearing her, but she felt like there was a piece missing. So she kept writing back to Eric, the kid who had killed her kid. 3 years into his sentence, she and other family members wrote to the judge asking for mercy and a sentence reduction. And then she asked that this man who killed her child be allowed to start changing his life, making a difference in her daughter's name as soon as possible. She asked that Smallridge be allowed to join her when she did her presentations. Since 2010, the two have been working as partners to raise awareness for drunk driving. And originally, from 2010 until 2012, they would bring Eric out in a prison jumpsuit and shackles. And he would be escorted by armed guards. And after Renee would speak, he would get introduced and he would explain to these students what it was like to really live after a DUI, after knowing you killed people. In 2012, he was released from prison at the age of 34, mostly because of the families of the two girls he killed. Since then, he has continued to tour with the foundation. Megan's mom says she'll never forget, but she's forgiven him. She's grown to love him, and the family now considers him to be like a son. She said, I could be angry and hateful and bitter. I don't want to live my life that way. There was no way I could move on without letting go of this and forgiving Eric. Eric says he will never forgive himself. Though they admit their relationship is definitely confusing, both agree that sharing this work has helped them to heal. Eric refers to Renee Napier as an angel. Renee said, we live in a world with a lot of pain and heartache, and I want to promote love and forgiveness and just break the cycle of hatred. I've heard her called extraordinary. I've heard her called a saint. I've heard her called an angel. I've heard her called all kinds of things. Is she? I don't know. Maybe she's telling the truth. Maybe she just could not live tied to that kind of pain forever, chained to the man who killed her daughter, unable to cut those bonds or make them anything useful. Monstrous things can happen in the world. Things that are bigger than a snub or a petty insult. Families are shattered, lives are changed, and then what? We're all supposed to be angels, to be Renee Napier? No, no. That's the power of forgiveness. Only you get to decide when you're ready to put it down. You don't have to be an angel. If you haven't learned what you want to learn from this, if you're not ready, don't you dare put it down. Only you can decide. This is your power. Each of us has a different amount of time and space it takes to process our hurt. Sometimes we may even need professional help. You're not wrong for taking the time you need. And it only becomes wrong when you can't move on, when your anger and those chains hold you in place, and what you want to hear is it never happened. What you want to hear is make it not have happened. That will never happen. Even when we've caused the problem, when we are to blame, when we've caused harm to ourselves or to others, we still need to allow the time and space to examine what we've done. And we can forgive ourselves. If you refuse to forgive yourself for your mistakes, if you examine what you did or didn't do and proclaim that it was unforgivable, you destroy a piece of your own worth. You chain yourself to that younger, dumber version of you. And you might as well announce, my journey has ended. I'm done. You have worth. You have value. Even when you have made terrible things happen or done terrible things, those things are not the sum total of who you are. Forgiveness is not a shared construct. You don't need permission to forgive someone else, not even theirs. You don't need permission to forgive yourself. Your word is good enough. Forgiveness is a release from ties we never sought that bind us to things we don't enjoy. It's an escape from the anger and hatred and despair that comes with bad things. And it doesn't mean you gave up or decided that what was done was okay. It has nothing to do with that. It means you're brave enough to light a lamp and look for a way forward. And to do it without the chains that have bound you. Forgive others when you're ready and forgive yourself when you can. Put down the chains and let your light shine. Thank you.
We extinguish this light, but never the light of love, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of our community. Our final hymn, number 148, follow along in the chat screen and sing with me. 4 verses. Let freedom span both east and west, and love both south and north, in universal fellowship throughout the whole wide earth. In beauty, wonder, everywhere, let us communion find. Compassion be the golden cord, close binding humankind. Beyond all barriers of race or race, of color, caste, or creed, let us make friendship, human worth, our common faith and deed. Then east and west will meet and share, and south shall build with north, one human commonwealth of good throughout the whole wide earth.
The service has ended and your service in the world begins again. Go out and shine. Peace, ashe, and may it be so.
I said, get rid of the keyboard. Cluttering.